I don't even want to talk about this game from a fantasy or supercoach perspective. We'll leave that for tomorrow morning because it was shocking. So we'll get into the 5 things that I learnt from round 4. It was. We'll change that one there. And then obviously my fantasy tip of the week there, which is always important to just calm yourselves. Look forward to round 5 because thankfully we get team lists tomorrow afternoon, which is pretty cool. And we can get into our round 5 thoughts pretty much straight away, which is great. So let's kick it off to start with the ladder after 4 rounds. And that's a pretty important factor now. I think we're going to do this every 4 weeks and have a little look at where teams are at. And very interesting to see. Obviously, a few of these teams that, if you're looking at the sports bet odds down the right-hand side there, there's 3 teams that are $61 or above that are in the top 8. So it shows that things can shake out, things can change very, very quickly over the first month or 2, especially over the season. So we'll check back in a month and see where these teams are at. But we do have the Panthers up top in second, who are very much clear favourites to win the comp at $3.30. And our second favourite to win the comp, the Broncos, down there in 2 wins from 4. But they've obviously had a pretty tough kind of run to kick things off to start the year here. So that's those 2. You've got the Roosters in the top 8 at number 7 at $8. You've got the Storm at 5th there, in a good spot there at $8.50 as well. So there's a few teams in this top 8, guys, that have had the 3 matches so far. And that's where we're playing this. They're not actually getting any points from buys anymore compared to what it used to be. You used to get the 2 points. So if you have the buy now, you don't even get the 2 points. So tough times. But Dolphins up in first place. They've obviously had pretty close to the nicest run to start the year. So you would also say the Titans do as well, but they are in a terrible position there at neg 72 across their 3 matches that they've played. So that's, it's not pretty at all. But Dolphins in a good spot there. Let's see where they shake out to. Hopefully they can play some good footy and still end up in that spot. Panthers, exactly where we think they're going to be. I think they'll finish number 1 for the season, even with Cleary missing a few weeks there. Cowboys, a nice start, but lost on the weekend, have a few things to fix up, and I completely understand why they're sitting around that 15-1. Similar to that of the Sharks at 19s, having won 3 games. Great for them. A couple of tighter ones and then a couple that they kind of got out to a sizable enough lead when it counted, but still plenty to look out for the Sharkies. Storm, I think they'll be top 4 very clearly, and looking to get Munster, definitely Hughes, and a few of the other boys back as well, Remus Smith, and potentially Nelson, which would be pretty cool. But a big congrats to the Tigers for that win this afternoon over the Eels, who are missing a couple of players. But Tigers just completely held on, and young Galvin absolutely stood up. That was the massive thing there from a Tigers standpoint, is that a young fella that can have all that on his mind after having that hip drop tackle and shock a couple of the young fellas, Plath and Galvin, got found out by the hip drop tackle. Happened with Jacob Preston last year as well, so took a lot longer into the season for Preston to go, but they're all finding out about that. But for him to come back from that sin bin and help his team win, incredible effort. And there's a lot of Gutho slander. There's a lot of people that hate Gutho, so they're very, very happy that he missed that final goal. So if that's you, that's fine. But so I suppose it's just a good thing to see Tigers winning some games of football, 2 in a row for them. Exactly what you what they'd hoped for, that's for sure, after a pretty tough couple of trials and a tough round 1. So Galvin stood up and did his thing. Great work on that front. Roosters in a 7th. Again, a lot of these top teams have had pretty tough matchups as well. So it'll be interesting to see how how all that shakes out, because Raiders are sitting in 8th after winning their first 2, losing the next 2. Eels, a tough loss there. The Wars in 10th, Eagles in 11th, Broncos in 12th there. And then you've got some of the lackluster teams at the bottom at the moment from 13 down. Dragons, Dogs, Knights, Bunnies, and the Titans. So that's where the ladder shakes out, and we'll leave that one there for the beginning of this video. Thanks for that. All right, best quality football this week. All right, so you do have to note that clearly the Panthers showed the best football this week. That was extremely noticeable. You then also had the Broncos. I think they showed where they're at to beat the team that was coming in first the previous week in the Cowboys by 26 in the wet as well. So to be able to put on 38 points, and I think 1 or 2 were disallowed as well. That was really good to see. So clearly showed that Panthers and the Broncos are probably still the top 2 teams in this comp. You had some really poor footy from the Eagles, from the Cowboys at that, who were looking to be some of the top tier teams, and that wasn't to play. So very much clearly the Panthers this week. This scoreline is a little bit more flattering to the Roosters than what it looked like, but good to see them show some fight. Roosters will be up there, but there's a clear gap between the top teams at the moment in the Panthers and the Broncos, with just their systems really standing out, and then just their talent on the back of some hard-working forwards and some terrific outside backs in that. So they're the two best quality football games of the week and what was shown. Most important win of the week, that was clearly the Bunnies in this one. They absolutely needed that, and for Jason Demetriou to come out and say that he's never had a tougher week in football in his life than this one, and he thought that if they were to lose that game, there'd be a lot of people potentially losing their job and getting their contracts ripped up, or he was getting a bit over the top with it, but it makes complete sense. It's usually the coach to go first, so I think he was feeling all that pressure, and that was a massive win for him there in that one for sure. And obviously the Dragons beating the Eagles, I think, was pretty big as well, to show that they're not just a team that has one good win in them and then they can just get absolutely smashed every other week. So that was a really big one as well. Wires at home was pretty solid. Sharks with their comeback was good, but I do think it was the Bunnies into the Dragons, two teams that after round one were not in a good way. So two important ones there. Number 4, just want to talk about the errors destroying almost every team, especially against the top team. So what we have noted is that Broncos are very much a high error type of team compared to most. Like if you look at them compared to, except for this week, the Raiders and how they play their footy, very high completion, get through their sets, get to their kick, defend well, and win games that way. Broncos can beat you with firepower. But in this case, you did see Cowboys, who are a team that has a lot of firepower as well. They got absolutely smashed by a team in the Broncos that were solid on that front. They weren't, too high like they have in previous games. They still threw it around. They were still able to do good things. And in that sense, Cowboys having so many errors absolutely cost them. Similar to that with the Roosters in that game, Panthers never gave them a chance. And anytime they lost the ball, they got absolutely smashed on the other end with a try. Similar to that with the Titans, but the Knights as well had a few errors in them, but the Eagles was massive. It was the Cowboys and the Sea Eagles there, just showing that you can't get away with errors in this competition. It's too good, it's too strong, and teams that most teams have a fair bit of points in them as well. I want to note here as well that if you are if you're causing an error for your team, there's going to be points on the back of it, because the lowest 2 teams this week, or 3 teams, were Cowboys, Eagles, and Knights with 12, and that is at least a couple of tries in them in each of them. And even Titans, not playing very well at all, still managed 14 points. And the majority of the other games are at least a couple of tries to each team. So it shows that if you make an error, if you make a mistake, it's absolutely getting capitalized on at the other end. Number 5, guys, the defensive intensity. I just wanted to comment on that. And that's on the other side of this, how important that defensive intensity is. And you can see that with the Panthers. They gave Roosters absolutely nothing in this one. It was sort of okay on both fronts from the Rabbitohs and the Dogs, I think, the defense there for 20-16. But definitely looked better, obviously being against a lesser team themselves rather than coming up against better teams in previous weeks. That they both looked a little bit better on that front. Broncos looked way better than the Cows, but Cows kind of just cooked themselves with their errors. Dragons defensively were much better again, even though, even when Eagles were able to hold on to the ball, they didn't have a way through. So it was good intensity, good slide, doing good things. Dolphins, again, were able to show a little bit of that. Warriors, to keep the Knights to only 2 tries, especially when Ponga was playing like he was, shows their intensity, their defensive intensity there. Sharks did not have any of it in that first half at all, especially in that first 20 minutes. And Raiders absolutely put on a score. It was 18-0 by that point. And then they turned it on, and then Raiders found it very, very difficult, obviously, with Sharks scoring, but then their Sharkies' defense picked up as well. So all of these points the teams are scoring are on the back of their defense being good, and then they're able to score points on the back of it. So I just wanted to make a comment on that there. And then lastly, guys, was my fantasy tip of the week. So last week we spoke about thinking more than 1 week at a time. So think ahead there, obviously. So it's going to be tough to field a great 17 this week, as we saw teams with 16, 15 even, some with 17, the odd one with 18. But just remember that round 5 is here. It's very quickly here. Don't trade someone out just to get a good score in 1 week. So I think we saw that for the most part. There was too many injuries and the like for that to be an issue. this week coming into it, I do think that that's going to play a bit of a factor as well, because I've got some serious rage trade with a few of my players. Like, a bunch of them are doing really well, which is awesome, but then there's always that selection that are very much underperforming for what you've paid for them. So my tip for this week is to use the stats to make your future decisions. We'll speak about in tomorrow's video about that last game in our quick update, but you have a bunch of Eels players that play so much better without Moses. They've been scoring terribly, but they've come out and scored exactly like they do when Moses doesn't play. And yes, it was against the Tigers, but over a long enough time horizon there, we've seen Gutho definitely without Moses tends to take over a lot of everything else that in general play, and that's where he gets a lot more runs. He gets involved in a lot more rather than hanging back and waiting for Moses to take control. So that's an example there. We've got Lussick with his shocker this week, and he did overperform in the first 2 weeks. We didn't expect it to be this bad, but he does have games where he gets 30s in big minutes or close to that. There's obviously the chance of him losing minutes, which has happened in this one. So players will go up and down, regress to their mean either up or down, unless something drastic has changed. And you'll see that there obviously with Moses being out and the stats surrounding that. We've seen that there. We've also seen other guys when you're looking at their base stats and they're looking really good. So that's a much safer pick in your side than looking at someone that's maybe had even a couple of weeks in a row. They look great. They get some attacking stats, and then there's every chance that comes back down to earth. We saw it with Fene-Fuiaki. He got the attacking stats in his first game there in the starting jersey, and then the game just gone this weekend. He went back to his normal mid to high 20s in just the base stats, and very much lax in tackle breaks, lax in offloads, and lax in assists and scoring, and even just run meters in general always seems to be fairly low for him in Q Cup, and then when he plays for the Cowboys as well. So these stats, they always come back to you, whether it's good, whether it's bad, they come back to you. So just be aware of that coming into this week when you're looking to make decisions that, is this guy just got some attacking stats this week and it's likely to come back down to earth, or is that something we expect to continue going forward? We're never going to make all of these decisions correct. Never. You can have the people that come first overall, they still make a lot of mistakes through the year. So just trying to reduce the amount of those. And if you are trading rather than holding, making sure as much as you can, it's the correct trade, right? So I've made 6 trades this week, this year for me. I think I've made 4 correct trades and 2 trades that haven't worked out. So I've got Joey Lussick, I've got Taylor May that haven't worked out, and my other 4 trades have worked out well. Getting Terrell May, Galvin so far, Kaipius Ball, one other. I don't know. I can't remember who the 4th one is, but they've all worked out and the other 2 haven't so far. So if I can continue with that, get 4 really good ones that make plenty of cash and 2 average ones, then it's likely... Oh, and Fogarty was another one. So yeah, 4 really good ones, 2 pretty average ones. They've averaged sort of, mid-20s to 30 for me across the 3 weeks and 2 weeks for Lussick. So not good on that front. They both lose a little bit of money now. But trying to get 4 out of 6, I think, is 4 slam dunks as well. They're really, really good trade-ins. The other 2, not great at all. They haven't got injured. Nothing's terribly happened, but it hasn't worked out. So trying to do 4 out of 6, 5 out of 6 as much as you can, you'll end up in a really good rank, really good position. And, because there's nothing worse than trading in someone that you then have to trade out a couple of weeks later. And that's what I'm seeing here, most likely with a Lussick. We'll get into that. We'll sort of that out over the next few days for sure. And there's going to be a hell of a lot of videos coming the next few days, guys. And I do thank you for coming to me, watching this, and being here for all the content. And fantasy can be super frustrating sometimes, and I'm feeling that way right now. Super frustrated with that scoring this afternoon and the high quality of scores that other guys got that I didn't have. But that happens. That's fantasy footy. I didn't own Hosking, and he had a shocker yesterday with the head knock. So the swings and roundabouts, they come, and don't be too disheartened. I'm a bit frustrated right now, but we'll be fine come tomorrow, and we'll get into sorting out our teams coming into round 5, guys. So I hope you had a really good Easter. I hope you had a good break, and we were able to get away from fantasy a little bit for some of you guys. I saw some of the views had dropped down a little bit, but good to have you back from tonight and on to the rest of the week. See you, team.